Welcome to Manifested e-learning platform. My name is Mr. Odongo, an advanced taxation lecturer. Today we will be handling capital gain. So at the back of our mind, number one, what is capital gain? So capital gain basically emanates when you transfer a property. So when you transfer a property, there's actually what you call capital gain. And when you talk about capital gain tax, is basically on transfer of property, and property in question is basically what you call land and building. So you cannot say gain, capital gain occurs when one transfers a property. When one transfers a property. Capital gain occurs when one transfers a property. Just property, i.e. land and building. I.e. when you talk about land and building. Transfer property, and in this case, land and building. When one transfer property, land and building. This is subjected. We say subjected to a withholding. This is subjected to a withholding. We say a withholding tax of 5%, that is previously, into bracket, withholding of 5%, that is initially. Then you say that from 2023, January, the rate changed to 15%. That effective January 2023, the rate of capital gain tax basically changed to 15%. So the figure is 15%, but initially it was 5%. So capital gain tax, which is being capital gain tax. We say that the capital gain tax is withheld. Is basically withheld by the transferor. The capital gain is basically being withheld by the transferor of property of the property. By the transferor of the property. That basically means by the person who transfers the property. But very important, we need to understand that before January 2023, the rate of the capital gain tax was 5%, but effective from January 2023, the rate changed to 15%, and we are basically saying that it is being withheld by the transfer of the property, and which should be remitted, and which should be remitted. We say should be remitted to the KRA, that is Kenya Revenue Authority, by 20th. We say by 20th of the following month. And which should be held, should we be remitted to the Kenya Revenue Authority by the 20th of the following month. Just to emphasize on what I've said, we say that capital gain occurs when you transfer, when one transfers the property, i.e., for example, land and building. And we've said that it's basically subjected to a withholding tax of 5%. That is before 2023, but we're saying that effective from 2023 January, the rate changed to 15%. So we're saying that the capital gain basically is being withheld by the transferor of the property and should be remitted to the Kenya Revenue Authority by the 20th of the following month. This withholding tax, very important, this withholding withholding tax is what we call is final tax. So that once we've subject the capital gain tax, presently 15%, we are saying that from 2023 to now, that should be 15%. Once the 15% is withheld, we do not subject the property in question to further taxation. We do not subject the property in question to further taxation. This is different from real estate. When you talk about real estate, and companies that are basically involved in selling of land, that is treated as business. But this is basically on transfer of property. So the 15% should be final tax. So we need to understand that capital gain, a background information, capital gain was basically suspended in 1985. That in the year 1985, this was basically suspended to allow the growth, we say the growth of property market, to allow the growth of property market in Kenya. That in the year 1985, it was basically suspended to allow the growth of property in Kenya, but was reintroduced. We need to understand, but was reintroduced, was basically reintroduced in the year, but was reintroduced in the year 2015. Basically reintroduced again in the year 2015. In the year 2015, January. In the year 2015, January. And what is the sense of introducing it? We say that the suspension in the 1985 was basically to allow growth of property in Kenya, but basically reintroduced in 2015 January, and the essence of that reintroduction was due to the following, for the following reasons. To say for the following reasons, was basically introduced for the following reasons. We can have one and we discuss them. One of the reasons why it was introduced, property had grown by then. The first reason is that property had grown by then. Property had grown by then. So by the time it was being introduced, the properties had grown by then, to allow government to allow the government to control the property, to allow the government to control the property market, to basically allow the government to control what you call the property market. That is why it was reintroduced. And lastly, we say that to raise tax revenue for the government, to raise tax revenue, what you call tax revenue for the government, to raise what you call the tax revenue for the government. Those were the three reasons why there was reintroduction of capital gain tax. There was reintroduction of capital gain tax.